of the world, and welcome to Adesoji Speaks. And this is a conversation titled Project 2025, a People's Conversation. And with me, I have Nitra. You want to do your conversation? You want to do your introduction?
Okay. I'm Nitra. I'm the founder of Political Education for Freedom nonprofit. We also have a podcast, Political Education for Freedom, on all streaming platforms. Um, and I'm an educator and just overall freedom fighter.
Okay. Brother Marlon.
Hey, peace, everybody. My name is Marlon Ausby. I live in San Antonio. Just wrapped up a 21-year military career in the United States Army. I'm a Nubian, and I'll be starting law school at Thurgood Marshall School of Law in 5 days. So I'll be living in Houston. So for the next 3 years. So, just trying to run a good race for my people.
Yeah, congratulations on the schooling and on the service to country. Yeah. Sister Aya.
Good evening, good afternoon, good morning, wherever you are, whenever you're watching this. My name is Aya Fubara Eneli, and thank you so much, Brother Adesoji, for convening this really important topic and for bringing together the people that you have today. I am an attorney, a mother of 5. I'm an author. I founded a mentoring program for girls in my community, and I also have helped to establish a library in Opobo, and we're in the works to also incorporate a school, because our whole focus is truly giving back to our youth, equipping them with the skills and the support that they need to be everything their creator has designed them to be. And that is one of the reasons why we need to have a conversation about this Project 2025 and what plans other people seem to have for us.
And yes, I'm the convener. I'm the host, Adesoji Iginla. I'm a writer, podcaster. You can find audio versions of all this on any of your audio podcast platforms, and do all the necessary stuff. And don't forget, whilst you're here, like, share, and subscribe, and help grow the channel. And so, yes, Project 2025. Who wants to have the first stab? Let me preface it with this. Kevin Roberts, who happens to be the head of the Heritage Foundation, said America is on the cusp of a second revolution, and it would be bloodless if the left allows it to be. Why do you think he made that statement? Any one of you guys?
I mean, I'll take a stab at it because he's serious. I think I think that these people are at the end of the rope, and they'll go to any extreme to not because they're not dog whistling, to scream at their supporters to get ready for something, like that, with bloodshed, because we know in this country, no revolution has been fought through, diplomacy. It's been through violence, and he's basically telling his supporters, get ready, because it's going to get violent. And I think that that's a message that resonates with them, because they are inherently violent. So I think that's the only way he can speak to them.
Anyone else?
I think I mean I see it as a veiled threat. If you look at the extreme right, violence has for a long time been a part of their rhetoric. It's been a part of their execution, and I think he's just that was a nod to that particular segment of his constituency.
Mhm.
I think that's really what it was, because on the left you really don't even have a strong, you didn't have strong political action, nationally, with regard to how the U.S. is. It's, you can't call out any individual, right? Because until recently, you really didn't have anybody that was, full throated against, Trump, So yeah, I think it was just political gesturing.
So
Sister.
when you read that quote, what came to mind is, at one point in my career, I used to prosecute domestic violence cases, and you would hear something like, if she didn't make me so mad, I don't know how to, I don't know how to blow her head off. No, I'm exaggerating, but you understand what I'm trying to say. Like, I wouldn't have
Mhm.
hit her. I wouldn't have done so and so if she
Mhm.
hadn't done X, Y, and Z. And so I just see this like the ultimate form of gaslighting when
Mm.
we look at who these conservatives have. And you know what? Today, I hope that we can take back the words and the language, because they have co-opted so much and we've just allowed them to have it. They're not conservatives. They are fascists.
Mhm.
And
Oh.
we need to label a thing what it is, because
Yep.
many of us are conservative, but we're not out here trying to deny everybody else their humanity and to lord it over anybody. So they're not conservatives, they are fascists, and we need to reclaim certain words. Just like when people say I'm pro-life, but you're also pro death penalty, even though you see that so many people who do get the death penalty, that it is based on race and on their poverty status, their economic status as well. So anyway, getting back to your point about revolution, you have to look at how, like Marlon and Nitra have said, how people operate. You're the ones who are marching with tiki torches. You're the ones who are holding up the Confederate flag and saying
Mhm.
the Ku Klux Klan and what they did in the Confederacy, that's your legacy, that's your heritage, right? You're the ones who stormed the Capitol building on January 6th. So there's nothing that you do that is not violent related. So to turn around and say it would be bloodless if the left let me, again, it's that person beating up someone else and say, I wouldn't have had to beat you up if you had if you had just fallen in line. And so that's what they're saying. Do as we say we as we say you should do. Otherwise, we're coming in with the violence. It's a threat.
Mhm.
Okay. So speaking of the threats, would you say that document in itself, Project 2025, 2025, I believe you have a copy printed out there. Just show people this.
I have to show your
You
audience
printed
this.
it?
Hold
Oh
on.
my gosh.
All
Yes,
those trees.
I
yes. No, because people need to understand, and sometimes we need visuals. So I put it in a binder and I printed it double sided.
wow.
Yes, yes, yes.
That's that's it.
This is
Double
it.
sided.
Double-sided,
Double
yes.
sided. Listen, you can't carry this too long. Your muscles are
War
going
and
to start.
Peace.
Yeah, I'm gonna weigh it next time and let you guys know exactly how much this thing weighs. But yes, this is the document that they have put together, their playbook, as they called it, for
Mm.
how they're going to take over power.
So
And
a quick breakdown of that book is it's 5 sections, 30 chapters, and over 922 pages of a step-by-step manual of how to effectively take over a government. Oh, why? No, not a government, a country.
Mhm.
And so going clockwise, Sister Aya first. What part stood out for you initially when you opened the document?
well, what stood out is that some of us talk
Mm.
and don't work, and some people talk and work. And what these guys have done is be very strategic, although, as we will break down later, there are lots of problems with this document. But the fact that they assembled these many people, they went through the entire federal government system with the way that they did to put together a playbook that is pretty much you don't have to have much common sense. Just go to the page that pertains to what we tell you to do and just follow it and do it. Is instructive. So the
Mm.
first thing that stood out for me was we are against some very formidable opponents. We may look at the clown who is heading their MAGA movement and point finger, we can point to his flaws and the issues with his character. But behind him are some very strategic people who are not just working nationally, they are actually working internationally to implement their vision of what the world should look like. And we will be foolhardy to be dismissive of them. That is what first stood out for me.
Okay. Sister Nitra?
Yeah, I noticed that too as well. Just what the biggest thing that stood out to me was in the way that it was instructive. So the way that it's organized, it tells you about, whatever this topic is. And then it actually gives you steps. It gives you their actual instructions. This is what we want to do. This is how we're going to do it. And like Aya said, anybody, it's not law or policy jargon. It's in plain language, and
Mm.
it's almost translated. It starts off with, they have all this information, this chunk of information. They have the footnotes, and then right under it, I look at it and I see teacher notes, and I'm like, wait a minute, this is for the regular person. So it's not just for the big wigs in government, but it's also for these, average everyday people who are doing stuff like running for school board. This is stuff that they don't have to have, formal education
Education, yeah.
to use this guide to do the same thing within their local area, their local community. I think that was the biggest thing that stood out. And it's just, chapter after chapter, it's the same thing. It's the same thing. They didn't change up. They gave explicit instructions. And I kind of hate that we don't have that. But it's, a lot of thought that was put into this. So I mean, they're serious.
Mm.
They are serious, and they're looking for the regular average person who'll buy into this and actually help them carry it out. It's a, it's a community driven plan. They're gonna do it with others, not just, those guys in Washington.
Marlon?
Yeah, to piggyback off both of the sisters, one of the things that jumped out to me was the collaborative scope of the document, right? When you look at the 500 plus contributors, you see Center for Immigration Studies, Parents' Right Foundation, Ohio Northern University College of Law. You see the RAND Corporation, you see American Affairs, Keystone Policy. So it's not a singular group. This is bigger than the Heritage Foundation, right? They're reaching across to other think tanks, and of course people that they can't list, right? They can't. It's like they can't put like PACs on here, but that they're working with the PACs, and so to me it served as like a call to arms. It should be a call to arms to everybody who sees that list of contributors and all of the different places they're coming from, because some of these are cultural places that that want to control how people live. Some of them are banks, some of them are education centers, and I just some of them are just law firms, big law. So we have to take into account that the other side is collaborating. They're not getting caught up on how old somebody is, how
Yep.
young
Yep.
somebody is, you know, and all of this. So, you know, I wonder, you know, how far do our purity tests go too far, you know, in furtherance of our goals? You know, we really got to figure out, you know, do we want to, you know, do we want to just have a, can we afford to be that picky when it comes to collaborating?
But Marlon, when you talk about collaborating, though, it's the same people that collaborated. Part of the challenge, I think, that people who are about our common humanity have is that you're trying to build such a big tent with such diverse and divergent viewpoints. But what they've done is, with whatever they consider conservative, there are a very specific group of people that they have had to work with them, that collaborated with them. This was not a big tent. So there's certain kinds of Christians that they did not include in this. And that there's certain kinds of Republicans that they did not include in this. So, you know, what's his name? Paul Ryan, who was a Republican for so long, they didn't include him in this. Or a Mitt Romney, or some of the more moderate Republicans. This is a MAGA fascist document. And so, even though we can name all of these organizations and individuals who collide, they are cut from the same cloth, really.
Yep.
And I think what you're seeing on the other side is, oh, well, we want the women, and we want the Native Americans, and we want the Hispanics, and we want the Blacks who are ADOS and not ADOS, and we want this, and we want, and there's all these, and then it's harder for us to come together and have one cogent voice. But with what they've done, they have basically said, to hell with everybody else and what you believe. This is what we believe, and we're going to ram it down your throats. That's just how I see it, though.
Yeah, but they aren't really sniping at the Mitt Romneys and the Paul Ryans in this document, right?
They've neutralized them.
Yeah, because they're on the fringes. When you bring those names up, you know, I see people that are politically adrift, right? They don't have a voice. They don't have a voice in their party.
They got rid of them. Yes. They neutralize folks. So it's our way or the highway. There's no coexisting. And I think that's the other reason why so many people will pledge allegiance to them, because literally you understand they will give you no room to live if you don't come on their side. They're that brutal.
And I think that they want that. I think a lot of their followers want to be led by dictators, authoritarians, fascists. I think they want that. It's a lot of people, more people I'm noticing with this MAGA movement. Well, they don't know what freedom is, but they don't want freedom. They want to be told to do stuff. They want to be told, you know, how to live, what to live. They also want to be the one to tell other people what to do and how to do it. It's like, I'm getting my instructions from up here, and then I go and I tell, because, you know, I'm at the top of the bottom. So I get to be the one to tell people what to do. But I noticed a lot of these MAGA people, I'm like, when I do talk to them, because I don't have patience for them, but I'm like, you don't want to have your own, you know, and they're like, yeah, okay, but you know that's not what that is. And they're like, so, like, they don't care. They're completely, you know, dismissive. So for me, it's, I know it's some other mental stuff going on, but I think it's a lot of people that want to be led by, you know, these types, you know, groups like this. They want a big manual like this that they can go and, you know, basically get all the answers from, or, you know, so-called, if you want to call it that. But I think that they don't have the imagination. They're weak. I think I don't. I have, and I'm talking about the Tiki Torch guys. You know, like, you know,
So if you say so, let me like go further with some, or ask you to go further with something you just said. They're weak. So what they're really looking for is, let me ask, would you say that what they're really looking for is protection?
A strong man.
That strong person, that a strong man, because it ain't gonna be a woman for them, a strong man that can then protect them. Is that the appeal?
You know what? That makes total sense. It's almost like, you know, the the sidekick to the bully. It's like, I never understood why a bully has a sidekick. It's like, this is a bully. He has no loyalty to no one. But the bully always has a sidekick. And it's like, why is that guy still there? And I think that's what it is like. It's like they're, at least I'm being protected from, you know, I'm gonna be abused by this guy, but I'm gonna be protected from those people over there. I think it is. It's they are that weak that they're looking for that strong man to sort of, yeah, to kind of to protect them and take care of them like they're babies.
Speaking of,
Which brings me to another part of when you say what else stood out for you. So much of this document is about returning America to when white men would have considered it great. So much of this document is about dismantling the rights of the others. So much of this document is about limiting other people's access to power and agency. And I think it goes back again to this fear of their own weakness. Because when it's a level playing field, you know, when they're talking about getting rid of really all the civil rights laws that have been passed, when they talk about getting rid of the housing agency, when they're talking about doing away with DEI in any form, except of course the ultimate DEI, which is white men. And those of you who don't know what DEI is, it's diversity,
equity,
equity and
and
inclusion.
inclusion. And what they want is division, exclusivity. That's what they want. And so really what it is about is we can't compete on an evil playing field. So we need to go back to when we could stack all the chips in our favor and against everybody else. And that way we feel like we're still in charge and we feel protected and we don't feel as threatened. And who can help us get back to when America was great again? It is this cultish figure that they have bought into, including the so-called white evangelicals, who 80% of them voted for Trump in 2020. And so a lot of this document for me here, when they're talking about conservatism, and when they're talking about Christian roots and family values and all of that, it's harkening back to it's a dog whistle, but harkening back to a time when nobody else had any rights that a white man had to recognize
Yep.
Roger Taney.
yes. And they have a Supreme Court with the black man who doesn't know he's black, who could very well usher us back to that time.
Clay
Speaking of taking us back to that time, Section 1 says taking the reins of government. And I'll quote something here. It says, the modern conservative president's task is to limit, control, and direct the executive branch on behalf of the American people. Now, one of the key things of this document is the language, which Nitra spoke to earlier. When you read it for what it is, it's double speak. When you say take back, when you say limit, control, and direct the executive branch on behalf of the American people, is that not the case at the moment? But to take it back suggests you want somebody to do something other than what is already in place. And we all saw what transpired with the Supreme Court when the question of immunity came up. And the guy effectively got carte blanche to do anything. So question now to you guys is, if this is a dog whistle and it's so loud, why is it that we're not moving in one direction? Going back to what Marlon was saying earlier, which is, how is it that we can have such a wide range in document that is so obvious in its content and so obvious with intent, but yet people are not focused enough on it? Why is that the case?
I think when we say people aren't focused on it enough, I think would it be fair to say that the level of focus on this document will probably be apparent on election day?
Okay.
Or are you talking about maybe the left producing a counter document to this? Are you talking about like more operationally, like on the ground responding to this document?
Okay, so let's say, I mean, we're having a conversation about it now, right?
Because if Kamala wins, then this is mute, right? Because this is just for now, right? But and I'm pretty sure they'll revise it and have Project 2029, you know. But I mean, that's
book you just throw away.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, these guys have demonstrated they're in this for the long haul. So this Project 2025 just didn't start, a couple years ago. This has been just like with Roe v. Wade, like they worked on it for 50 plus years. Just like with the textbooks in the South and the whole idea of why was slavery fought, why was the Civil War fought. These people were in it for the long haul. Like, yeah, we are going to gradually change everything until it is the story we want told. And so whether it's 2025 or 2029 or 2050, I don't see this group of people and their offspring really giving up on what they consider their birthright.
I agree with that.
I think we are I mean, the issue with the opposition to Project 2025 is, well, one, it's a lot of different factions. And I think Aya was explaining that. But just the everyday person doesn't know that this thing here exists, or that this thing has existed for, I mean, they tell you in the book that they've been doing this since, like, this book was handed to Reagan or something like that. I think
yeah.
So, and I mean, myself, I just learned about Project 2025. I didn't know that this was happening, that this started in a time of Reagan or whatever. So I think that's the case now. They don't know that it's there. They don't know it exists. And we have to get creative in how we reach the people about something like this, because I think after the BET Awards, I think that was Taraji P. Henson mentioned Project 2025. The Google searches went up for Project 2025. So a lot of people actually started learning about it. But then the creators of Project 2025 was like, oh, they know, so then it was like, let's fix this. So I think that if
I thought you said they weren't gonna read it,
Exactly. That's what they're saying. Like, they don't read. This place doesn't read. So I think when they saw that it was getting some traction, and I think just how Black people, how we get information out is really through word of mouth. So when that one thing is said right there, on something like the BET Awards. I didn't watch it, but I got so many text messages saying, "What is Project 2025?" I know you know. What is it? Like they were asking me, and I'm saying like in the family group chat and the friend group chat, and all of these
Same.
people, yeah, they come to me like, "What is Project 2025?" And it's like, I told you that this exists, but they didn't listen to me when I was telling them, but they listened to Taraji P. Henson. So I think us being able to get the information to them, even if it's just little tidbits, stuff that we know is gonna get people uncomfortable to the point where they like, oh hell no, that's not happening here. I think that's what we need to do, and that's why it's not a big, unified movement against Project 2025 is because most of the people don't know it. They don't know about it. And they don't know how serious these people are. And they think that when we say it, we're just fear mongering. But
I think most people don't know about it. And I think that what the American capitalist system does is that it just sucks up all your energy and your strength, that you really don't have time to
and your
organize.
attention.
Yes. Yes.
You know.
So yeah, when you're not working to put bread on the table, you are looking for distractions,
Netflix,
your mind and your body from the stress of whatever else it is that you so whether it's some rap feud, or whether it's somebody chasing a ball or whatever, we're looking for other things. I should also say this, Adesoji, and all your listeners, and Marlon and Nitra, that from my research, putting together Project 2025, this document, costs over $22 million. Like, people really had it as their jobs to wake up in the morning and to just sit down and say, what we want to screw up with the government today.
Yeah.
And listen,
and they're paid to do it. They got paid to do it.
They got paid very well to contribute, right? So, and they had research staff and they had resources and all of that. So I'm telling you, if one of these very wealthy so-called more humanistic people, is what I'll say, because I'm really not about the parties one way or the other,
right,
would say, listen, Aya, would you be willing to put your gifts and talents and time to helping to figure out how we can work towards solutions? Yeah, you're paying me so I can pay my bills. I have time all day for that. But when I'm working a regular job and doing this and doing this and doing that, excuse me, it's a lot tougher to come and sit down and read through the minutia in 922 pages. Plus footnotes. Yes.
Plus footnotes. I didn't even get into the footnotes. But you're right, because this capitalist system, most of us are focused on trying to put food on the table, and that's why we're getting the text messages saying, what is this? Because they want us to be able to give it to them real quick, and because they don't have the time. And that is something that we can't, the left, I mean, and I don't know if it's the left or right, but I know that the opposition on our side, the opposition got a lot of resources. Imagine if they put all of that money into reparations. Like,
that's another conversation.
I mean, if we had the resources, we could do, what I'm saying, like, we could do something like this, but in something that would turn out to be, positive. And I'm not just saying, because this document, it talks about global reach. It does not talk about just the United States. So, imagine if we were able to put those resources into, us getting back what's really ours on a global scale, us being able to pay, Aya or someone to sit down and actually come up with solutions. We can't do that. We're spread so thin on the side of humanity that, I don't know how many calls or text messages I get to volunteer to do stuff. It's like, they're not volunteering on that side. So that's a big deal. And that amount of money, like, wow. I didn't
Wow.
think it was that much.
Because both of you were saying people are calling and texting and saying what is this about? Let's tell them what it's about. So for an example, I'm just going to throw out a few things that are in this project.
Okay.
Anybody ever heard of the FDIC? If you have a bank account, you should know about the FDIC.
Mm-hmm.
For the vast majority of us, you put your money into the bank and you have an expectation that up to $250,000 of that money is protected.
Secure.
Should something
Yep.
happen with the bank or whatever, the government is going to make sure you get your money back. One of the things that they are wanting to do in this project is to eliminate the FDIC altogether. In other words, banks, I've put my money in your account. I have in your bank, I have entrusted this funds to you. You're already making money with my money, because when we put our money in, they just loan it to other people and so on and so forth. You're already making money with my money. Oh, now you can be as risky as you want to, understanding that you can come back tomorrow and be like, oh, Aya, you mean your life savings for 40 years was in this account? Oh, well, sorry, it's gone. Too bad. And so that's just one example. Let me give another example. Any of you have children in public schools? So as much as they're talking about vouchers and so on and so forth, there are not enough private schools to educate all of our kids, particularly Black and brown kids, kids from disadvantaged, economically disadvantaged homes, so on and so forth. These private schools are not free. They do not have to cap their tuition at just what the government gives as a voucher. They are not going to bus your children to school. They do not have the same requirements in terms of taking care of children with any special education needs. They don't have, in fact, they are under no requirement to even admit your child. They can have whatever requirements that they want to, because it's not federal dollars, right? It's not state dollars. It's money that they gave to the parent, and then the parent chooses where they go with it. Okay. So now understand that one of the things that this document says is private schools, do what the hell you want to, essentially. But if your child is in public schools, they're going to take the SVAP. Now, Brother Marlon can tell us about that. That's what it's called, right? Did I say it right?
The ASVAB. Yeah, the ASVAB. ASVAB, yep.
What they said about the ASVAB is because the military needs a recruiting pool. But we're not going to make that mandatory for these other kids who go to the private schools. Yes, the recruiting pool for whoever we're going to send to go to whatever front lines or whatever are going to be you, the children of those of you who are disadvantaged. Oh, it gets better. Remember how in the 60s we had laws now that that prosecuted people for discriminating against us when it comes to housing. Because you remember that we had all these HOAs, housing, what are they called? Housing organizations,
There were covenants and
yes. So they had all of these places where it's like, no, you can't sell to a Black person, you can't sell to a Hispanic, so on and so forth.
Redlining, racial covenants, yep.
What this Project 2025 says is, we trust the American people to choose what they want their neighborhoods to look like.
Yeah.
So we are going to get rid of completely
those euphemisms. Those euphemisms again.
Exactly. Because
I'm gonna say, I trust you. I trust you.
I trust you.
Trust you to take it back to the 1940s.
Yes, where we want to make sure that you can discriminate against who buys a home in a certain place. Oh, and by the way, banks, where you can discriminate and continue with this redlining to ensure that certain places are
stated where they are. Yeah.
Exactly. Okay.
And no oversight. Remember, they don't want
no oversight. So
nobody can tell them.
I'm trying to hit on a number of things. So depending on who you are, you find where you fit in, right?
Right.
Oh, maybe you are a veteran. Maybe you have family members or children even who are in the military. Now they're going to revise how they determine who is disabled and who gets any disability benefits. I happen to live near Fort Cavazos. That will be devastating to a great number of people in my community. it gets better. They're not done. Women say we're no longer going to fund Head Start because we really don't want children from disadvantaged backgrounds to get any kind of start at all, right? So we're going to get rid of Head Start, but we're also going to get rid of universal child care. So we're not trying to make it easier for women who are working outside of the home or parents working outside of the home to get childcare outside of the home. What we're going to do, and doesn't this sound really great? We're going to pay you to stay at home. But how much are they going to pay you? And ask me, what happens to the cat ladies who don't have children? What happens to the stepmothers? What happens to the woman who has invested in her career?
Civic death to the cat ladies.
Has all of this school loan debt, but she can't go out and work because she's taking the job of a man who is taking care of his family, and she needs to get home. So, I mean, I could go on, but I'm going to be quiet so some other people can pull up some certain things. The one other thing that I'm going to say, and there's so much, one of the things they want to do is to get rid. Okay, so here's the issue. They said the federal employees, their retirement system is too good. Can you imagine that
you have to bring it in line?
They can work for 30 years and retire, and they even get a cost of living increase in their pension. Oh, hell no. We want everybody to work till they die. So rather than figuring out how the private sector can come up to par so that people can actually have a living wage and be able to enjoy their old age, no, we want to get rid of that retirement system for the federal government, and we're going to do even better. We want to get rid of all the quote unquote career federal employees, and we're just going to put in political appointees. You know what political appointees do? That looks like Russia.
Whatever the strong man say do.
And just to make it
come get you out your house in the middle of the night if that's what he say do.
And just to make it even better, they want to abolish the Whistleblower Act. So if you are someone working in any of those federal agencies with a conscience, and you see where they are about to go drop a bunch of lead in the water for a certain community so they can kill those people off so they can go in there and mine their resources, and you try to tell your butt with the DOJ that has now been weaponized is going to be literally lynched, and there is nothing you or anybody can do about it because the Whistleblowers Act got. Do I need to continue on how?
Where does the DOJ now sit? You've not said that part.
Oh, the DOJ is the president's arm.
Right.
Whatever the president wants.
Right.
They are supposed to advance the agenda of the president.
An army of prosecutors.
Yes. Go ahead, Marlon.
No, I was just saying the DOJ, that's the president's army of prosecutors, but they should be, and they should be, they should be working in the interest of the American people because that's what the president is supposed to be doing. But this is, this is in theory, right?
Yeah, but that's the key. But that's the key phrase: in the interest of the American people.
Yeah, but they make it clear that it's conservative people. Like they are in the language they carve out who this government is going to protect. I also want to bring up. I said about the retirement system, don't forget it's retroactive. So if you already retired, they still want to go back. Don't think you're safe. They want to go back and get your retirement money that you've already retired. You put in the work, not the ones who on the precipice of retirement. They want to go back to the 85, 90-year-old man who is sitting up just chilling on his thinking about the old days. They gonna snatch him from wherever he at and take his retirement from him.
Nitra, and they better not hope that they're gonna rely on Social Security either, because that's gonna be gone.
Exactly.
They take that away too. No, that's completely gone.
I mean, I'm not laughing. It is very serious business. Yes.
Oh, they are literally. This document does not protect the elders, and it does not protect children. It goes at the most vulnerable.
Yeah.
And it also makes the least vulnerable culpable for going after the most vulnerable. We're in it too. Like they make us where in this document, you're going to hate old people and you're going to hate kids because they don't produce. They don't do, this is what, and the weird thing about this is,
oh no, but we're pro-family. We're pro-family. What are you talking about?
No, you pro-family until 65. Because after 65, you can't work. You're not strong.
But remember, family for them means, this unit where the man is at the head, and making all the decisions. And
but grandpa not. They kicking out grandpa.
Only if he's not disabled, because we're also pulling all the laws that assist anybody who is disabled as well, because that's
right. They also address the Individual Disabilities Act, but the thing in Nazi Germany, the way Hitler arose or whatever, how he rose to power. In the beginning, Hitler went after disabled people and old people. His brown shirts crew, they were going around rounding up old people and disabled people. It started off as disabled people that are, differently able. They may be, they may have Down syndrome. They may have, some type of developmental disorder. He was going after them, rounding them up and killing them or putting them in, camps, but, they're technically death camps. Then he went after the elderly people, the most vulnerable. These are the people who can't protect themselves. They can't fight back. And the problem with why it progressed in a way that it did was because somebody saw that and they didn't say nothing. So you had a lot of people seeing and knowing that disabled people are getting rounded up and being, abused, killed, whatever, and they're not saying nothing about it. And this document, it does that. It says old people are not valuable to us. Kids are not valuable to us. They're not worth protecting until they are of, working age or whatever. Like it is, they talk about families in here, but then, like we said, they contradict because then they completely throw their grandfathers and great grandfathers right under the bus. Because it's like, I know these people have old people. Why are you taking their pensions away? Like at some point it's going to touch their families and they don't care. They don't care that it's going to get to them. So
I think they look at stuff like that they most certainly should be concerned with. And I think they think, not us, that he going to do that to them. I'm serious. I'm serious. That could be the only way, you could go along with something like that. And then again, they're not reading this. Like that, they're not reading this. Again, I'm more impressed with. Again, I'm more impressed with the collaborative scope of the document versus like the substance of the document. Because if anybody who take a serious look at this, me with my military background, I went straight to Section 2, and he rolls out like 4 priorities, right? This guy Chris Miller that writes Chapter 4 in Section 2, the Common Defense, the Department of Defense. And priority number 1 is reestablish a culture of command accountability, right? Non-politicization and warfighting focus. So, and I'm gonna say this, right? I'm finna say this. And the army, the military is not perfect, right? But when Miss Guillen died down there at Fort Hood, right? With it got the new name Fort Cavazos. But when she died, who lost their job? The 3-star, right? Now, for her, like it's hard to quantify how far away they are in the, in
the
connection to
command
each other,
structure.
right?
Okay.
Yeah, in the command structure. But
So
that sounds like accountability to me. You know what I mean? Now do they pay for everything that happens? Do people get swept under the rug? Was that nationalized? Yes. But I can tell you, as somebody who did 21 years, I've seen commanders get relieved for social media posts. I've seen them get relieved for just being seen out to lunch too many times, with somebody that was, the difference in rank was too far. And when they come to non-politicization,
Mhm.
General Milley, when he got seen out there with Trump with the upside down Bible, he came on there and he apologized, which I think that's a reason why the Army gets so much smoke compared to the other branches, because he's, General Milley come out of the Army, but when he's the sec def, he comes out and apologizes and say, look, I shouldn't have been there. I'm in the military. We non-political, right? And he's been a pariah ever since. And then the third thing in this number one priority is war fighting focus. If the military is not, I would love to know what the military, because they don't say it in here, but I would love to know what the military is focused on if it's not war
right,
fighting.
right now, right? So like, why would it? So it would need to change because that's
Right.
what it does already. But I think it's more about what war. I don't think there. I think the focus is still going to stay on war, but war with who, And I think it's going to go back to that, that allegiance type thing. Who is going to pledge allegiance to this, and who's going to be against it? And that's what their the focus is going to be. The domestic terrorist is going to be people who are against this document, which to me
Yeah.
would
If you didn't know any better, when you read through Section 2, you would think that the military has ran up in the White House 3-4 times over the course of the nation's history. You know what I mean? and it's never even been that, we've never even come close to that. Um, the military is a pretty vicious, pet dog that the president gets to sick on whoever across the globe. But the military has never come close to biting, biting the hand that feeds it.
Yeah.
If you can say anything about the military, that's one thing like that you can say. Um, I also I was a little. It was crazy, the Department of Homeland Security section, like the chapters that dealt with Department of Homeland Security, like they are so obsessed with the border.
Yes.
Like
Yes.
they want
General.
ICE. Like ICE is like not even like that big of a it's not big when you look at the Department of Homeland Security, when you look at how it's arrayed out there, Border Patrol and everything. Like they want ICE to be the premier organization. They want Secret Service. They want Secret Service to be absorbed in the ICE if they're not operating in the NCR.
So Marlon, the question is why?
Yeah, I was gonna say that.
The question is why? Because if you have the borders, let's use their case, and let's use their worst case scenario, that are porous and there are all of these people coming in. Who are the people coming in their estimation? They are the undesirables,
The
which is why
unwashed.
they're saying increase visa application fees and fast track it for those who can pay extra. So who are the people who typically have more of the resources to pay extra? So that I know you're here in Texas, but for right here in Texas, the big issue is, hey, the browning of Texas. And how do we
Yeah.
reverse it? Let's get more white women having babies.
Mhm.
And let's get as many immigrants as we can, black and brown immigrants, out of the country. So what this document is also proposing is to end birthright citizenship. And again, talk about retroactive measures, be able to go back and say, yeah, so you're not a citizen anymore, so we get to deport you from our
Mhm.
shores. and that whitens the community a little bit more, and then close the borders and only ensure that certain types of people come in. Um, of course, if you're a human being who breathes, drinks water, eats, you should be concerned that what they're saying is that the federal government should, in every instance, get rid of anything, any research to do with climate change. We're going to just act like it doesn't exist. And if there's any funding that the federal government is putting towards climate change research or any regulations to help protect the environment, we want them done away with, because we're just about capitalism and let's go and extract whatever we want, wherever we want, however we want it. Let's also look at some other issues that they have here. They want to make sure that the words gender, gender equality, gender equity, gender aware, gender sensitive, any references to abortion or reproductive health, any references to sexual and reproductive rights be completely stricken from every government document, website, everything that you do. We do not want that terminology in anything at all. Then earlier, both of you, Marlon and Nitra, you spoke, and Adesoji, you spoke to the double speak. I just want to read this one section for our listeners. This is on page 265. So if you came in late, I actually printed the whole thing. This is it, right? Okay. Because sometimes people need to see this stuff and not just, oh, it's a PDF online. Okay, so this is what they say. The Bureau, talking about focusing on holistic health care and support for women, children, and families, okay? The Bureau should implement a request for application for resilient families that harvests collaborative funds from siloed programs and makes individuals and the family, not diseases or conditions, the true focus of intervention. So I can't come and say there is a practice that is affecting our community. There is an issue with the quality of education. There's an issue with the quality of healthcare or water in our area, because that is a disease or condition. We're not going to address that. But you can come in as individual and say, well, I didn't get clean water. Tell me how efficient that is, and tell me how that really helps families.
Public works, public health, it's all cast to the wayside. Yeah.
Resilience, and they use it as it's like you get a prize for being resilient. But the thing is, it's like, why do we have resilience? You know, like that's not something that, this is somebody is fighting, for basically their lives. Just because they come out good on the end doesn't mean that it was okay that they were fighting for their life. And they're saying, like, yeah, so if you're resilient, that's good. It's like, no, we should be getting rid of things like that. The things that cause them to be in the situation where they have to show resilience. And this, to me,
you should be more resilient. And if you're LGBTQIA or adjacent and whatever,
you dead. You dead.
Well, if you live, you're resilient.
Well, yeah, I guess so. Also, we're going to monitor pregnancies. I recently told my daughters, go ahead and delete that app that you use in tracking your menstrual cycle, because I don't know who that information is being fed to. But anyway, they're going to monitor pregnancies. They're going to restrict birth control. I think they're going after everything except condoms. They're banning abortion, and they're banning IVF as well. My nephew was born via IVF. Some of you may have experienced the absolute agony of
wanting a child and not
being able to have one. I've experienced 4 miscarriages. I know what that thing is like. And for these people who are not even physicians, I mean, so much for the American people having a right to their own freedom and their own autonomy, but you're going to tell people what they can and cannot do with their bodies. it goes further, right? They want to stop, so with the Affordable Care Act,
Mhm.
we now came to a place where if you had pre-existing conditions, the insurance companies still had to cover you. Well, they want to roll that back.
Mhm.
Of
So if you
course.
have any pre-existing condition, please die or figure out how to be resilient, right? Because um, they want
Right.
to stop, they want to stop overtime pay. They have a whole section on why unions are bad.
Bad,
And
yeah, yeah.
particularly, the federal government should not allow any federal employees to be unionized.
Unionized, yeah.
They have a whole piece of information on getting rid of just about every social program, anything that is going to help uplift regular people. So I don't know how these white folk against maybe they're voting for their whiteness, or whichever black or brown people or women might be supporting this, whether they're just ignorant, willfully or not. Um, and then with media and technology, I don't know if anybody has ever read the book 1984. I think that's the title.
1984, yeah,
Yes.
yeah.
George
And
Orwell.
how
George
they
Orwell.
created agencies with
Mhm.
titles, headings that did the exact opposite of what the heading would make you believe. Anyway, in terms of media and technology, this project outlines a vision for controlling the media,
Yeah.
controlling technology to align with their own values. And essentially, you don't do what we say, we shut you down. And so once you have control over all those mechanisms, you can, and then of course, you have control over the schools and what is and
Yeah.
isn't allowed to be taught in the schools. It's so easy to program people to do exactly what it is that you would want them to do. And we could go on, and I guess we will, but this document is very dangerous to every living human being.
There is I mean, okay, for any, I just want to read this part. For any society to thrive, there must be an element of justice running through or coursing through the veins of such a society. And in the General Welfare, Section 3, page 284, the bottom paragraph, it says, if there's another department that has gone off the rails, like HHS during the Obama and Biden administration, it is the once proud Department of Justice, the DOJ. As a former counselor to the Attorney General, Jean Hampton writes in chapter 17, the department has a long, noble history. Edmund Ralph Randolph, the first Attorney General, took office the same year as President Washington. This is another thing that runs through the document. This idea of looking back to past presidents and eulogizing them,
Yeah.
regardless of what the kind of presidents they were. And then it comes here, which is,
Reinvention.
yes. And this is where it gets funny. The current Attorney General, Merrick Garland, has turned the DOJ, resulting in a political motivated, viewpoint-based prosecutions. Rings any bell? Of political enemies and indifference to the crimes of political allies, has made the department a threat to the republic. The most important thing for the next Attorney General to do is to refocus the department on its core functions of protecting public safety and defending the rule of law, while restoring its values of independence, impartiality, honesty, integrity, respect, and excellence. I want to highlight the bit, at least I did that in here. This core function of protecting public safety and defending the rule of law. Does that sound familiar?
I mean, that's always, that's always the headline. That's again euphemisms, right? It's euphemistic language, right? We're for freedom, except when it comes to women's bodily autonomy, right?
Yep.
We're pro-life, the whole death penalty thing, personal freedom, it's again, they're talking to a specific crowd, and
With a
we're
big
not,
bullhorn.
we're not, but we're not included, we're not
Yep.
included in that,
Yep.
unless we want to, unless we want to buy into that worldview. So I think,
Clarence Thomas.
In that same fashion, I mean, in
exactly.
that same area, they go into the they sort of explain the agencies and what they would prefer them to do. But going off of what Marlon said, just a little bit down from where Adesoji just read, they talk about the Secretary of Education, and I'm gonna quote what they say. Short of this, the Secretary of Education should insist that the department serve parents and American ideals, not advocates, but whose message is that children can choose their own sex, that America is systemically racist, that math itself is racist, and that Martin Luther King Jr. idea of a colorblind society should be rejected in favor of reinstating a color conscious society. They invoke our people. They do this all the time. This is totally gaslighting. But they then go, now this is a department that exists already. They're saying they want the Department of Education should allow parents to do whatever the hell they want, but here are the restrictions to what the parents cannot do. They cannot let their kids choose their own sex. They can't talk about the education system being systemically racist, and it's basically what we saying that it is, not what you're experiencing. It's what we saying, and this is a lot of what is happening in this document, because they say this, right? They say that it's to serve the parents, and the parents should have the freedom, but then they also go down further and limits how education is supposed to be implemented in this country based on the document.
Now, if you would have just kept going to the next sentence, right? He said the next head of this department will have a lot to do. Hopefully culminating in the closure. In the department's closure. So, once we like hollow this thing out, then we'll shut it down, right? And then we'll proceed with the salutary restoration of educational control to states, localities, and parents.
And where have we heard this language before? We're not getting rid of abortion.
States' rights. This is yep.
Yes.
Hand it to the state. Yeah.
So they want to get rid of Pell Grants.
Yeah, that's in there too.
I was a Pell Grant child, thank God.
Me too.
They want to reverse. Any of you who have rejoiced over getting your school loans forgiving, your school loan debt forgiven, you might want to just open an account and just keep paying what you used to pay into that account, just in case. Because
and remember, retroactive,
you are going to get a bill. And
they
that
might
bill is going to say you owe X, Y, and Z dollars. And you can tack it on to what you already have to pay. And you got this much time to pay it back.
And they have retroactive. Remember, they're going to go back.
Now, here's the other thing, talking about the double speak. This is on the bottom of page 322. The title says Safeguarding Civil Rights. So pay attention. Enforcement of civil rights should be based on a proper understanding of those laws. Now, we can get into the legal weeds here and understand how laws are being interpreted and misinterpreted. So when you say a proper understanding of those laws, remember that they are now using the same laws that we used to fight segregation are now being used against us. And that's how they are now shutting down, quote unquote, affirmative action. You cannot look at race when you are considering a person for college or so on and so forth. So they go on to say, enforcement of civil rights should be based on a proper understanding of those laws, rejecting gender ideology. So you can't talk about, any gender gender inequity, any of that, and rejecting critical race theory. So don't come here with that mess of there has been a disparate impact on people from so and so. No, that's critical race theory. So tell me exactly, how are you going to safeguard civil rights? And whose civil rights are you going to safeguard when you
Exactly.
basically said you can't talk race, you can't talk gender?
But we just said that it was freedom, right? They just said that it was freedom for parents, except for if it's dealing with race and sexual identity. It's completely, and then they also make sure that they put in that it has to be, you have to be of one with conservative values. They use the language American exceptionalism. Like, so,
That.
so they're putting it in plain language. No,
America.
you can't be black, and you have to be conservative. You basically have to be Tim Scott.
Whatever that means.
Well, you got to be Tim Scott. I mean, you can't be a black person. Like they're completely erasing the our experiences that's perpetrated by them, by the way. But we're just gonna wipe the slate clean as if none of that exists. But remember, you have freedom. But I also, because Aya brought up these departments that they're taking away. One of them, now she mentioned the student loan, right? But they want to get rid of, they just want to completely dismantle the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau. Just completely get rid of it. They don't want nothing. Now, this bureau,
how else are we going to get the carcinogens in your food and your water and all of that? You know, we don't need an agency like that getting in the way, you know.
Now, this kind of ties into what Aya was talking about. Now, the Consumer Protection Finance Bureau, they are the ones that oversee mortgage and housing protection, credit card and loan transparency, debt collection practices, consumer education, and financial literacy. They handle consumer complaints, student loans, and overdraft fees and bank account management. That is what the Consumer Finance Protection Bureau does in this country. So when we get them little checks in the mail that say, hey, there was a class action lawsuit and so owe you some money because they overcharged you with overdraft fees or whatever, the everyday regular person knows about overdraft fees. You've seen them. Okay. Now they're saying ain't no limit to it no more. They don't want an oversight over how the banks deal with you and deal with your money. They don't want oversight on how the bank is to deal with your money, but then they don't want oversight on how the bank takes your money.
Well, they totally against consumer advocacy on every level.
No protections for us at all whatsoever. So those overdraft fees that was $35, they went to $20, $25, and they went down to, okay, imagine without this Consumer Finance Protection Bureau, the overdraft fees can be $150. What about if the overdraft fee is the exact amount of the transaction that we didn't pay or that we paid for you? So let's say this was your mortgage payment and you was short $5 and it was $1,000. Well, they'll charge you $1,000 overdraft fee just for paying your $1,000 check. They can do it because there's no one to say that they can't, and there's no oversight over who can do it. I went to the extreme with a mortgage payment and a high amount, like $1,000, because I think people need to hear it on that level, because they're giving the power to the banks. The banks don't care that you don't have $1,000. The banks don't care about that. The bank knows that you get a direct deposit and they're going to charge you that overdraft fee, whether it's $1,000 or if it's $50 or whatever. They know for a fact that it's probably going to be difficult for you to go and change that bank account to stop that direct deposit. So what are we going to do? We can get that $1,000 real quick. Even if we just get one, that's enough for the banks. I worked at a bank, and I was like, well, overdraft, and this is me telling my manager, I was like, overdraft fees don't pay the banks. They don't. The banks aren't sustained through overdraft fees.
Oh, yes,
And
they
she told
are.
me, she told me, she said, oh, but they are. I say,
Yes,
what? Now
they
what if
are. That is a
everybody?
huge part of their profit
She told me
making.
that. She said, I said, what if everybody's, just stop getting overdraft fees? She said, they'll figure out a way. So it's not as if, so you have no protections. And some of these government agencies that are in place, they actually do protect us. We just go about our business not knowing that there is someone or some mechanism there that's protecting us and protecting our little dollars. What if they give, the banks are now allowed to garnish your wages? They don't have to go through your bank account. They could just take your paycheck. There's nothing that's stopping them from being able to do this. They actually mentioned something going as far as being able to garnish wages to collect debt. They don't care. They don't want any type of oversight on them. They don't want any protections. Like Marlon said, no consumer protection agency at all whatsoever.
Let's talk a little bit more, staying on education as well. Page 350. Over a 10-year period, the federal spending should be phased out,
Yep.
and states should assume decision-making control over how to provide a quality education to children from low-income families.
Mm-hmm.
See, the wealthy are going to be okay. In
Right.
Texas, whenever we need to cut the budget, well, balance
Mm-hmm.
the budget, they
We
they
got
they cut
education.
they cut education.
Mm-hmm.
So now we're going to phase out any kind of oversight. We saw what happened with election laws. The minute that the Supreme Court said you no longer have to have pre-clearance to change your election laws because, oh, we think everything is okay now. What did the state start to do? They started to put back into place those laws that would make it
Mm-hmm.
harder for people to vote. And so again, here we see the same tactic, this
Mm-hmm.
state rights piece. So just give it to the states, and the states
Everything will be
will
okay.
work in your best interest. Meanwhile, in a state like Texas, we have these constitutional amendments, and on the average, the percentage of registered voters, eligible voters who go out and vote for constitutional amendments is under 20%.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes it's less than 10%. And yet, these are the people who are ultimately, because the rest of us aren't voting, are making the decisions that impact us all.
Mm-hmm.
So, again, for anybody at all, why are we going through what? Let me rephrase. Why am I going through Project 2025? Why did I bother to read every page of this document? Why did I spend the money that I spent to print it out? Because ignorance is not bliss.
Mm.
And when you know better, you hopefully will do better.
Mm-hmm.
And we have a real existential threat against every aspect of our livelihoods as we know it, even the very concept of America. Because if you get to a point where the president has the power to fire all of these federal employees and just put in yes men and women, and they are making the decisions that impact the entire nation and even how America stands globally,
Mm.
the states are also copying the same thing and implementing these things. So you see it in
Mm-hmm.
Louisiana, you see it in North Carolina, of course, you see it in Texas, you see it in Florida. So this is, for me, reading this and sharing this is a call to action for us all. You cannot bury your head in the sand. You cannot hope that somebody else is going to come and wage this battle on your behalf. You cannot trust that the government is going to do right by you, because if we understand history, right after Reconstruction, Black people were creating their own businesses. We had townships that were thriving. We were building schools and so on and so forth. We were electing Black people into all manner of office. And by 1877, these people were like, nah,
Too
These
much.
Negroes they have too much power. They're running amok here. We gotta reel them in. And just like that, the Jim Crow and Jane Crow laws were gradually put in everywhere, and recognize that it took us from the late 1870s all the way to 1964, 65 to start regaining some of the rights we lost. And even that, when we talk about desegregating schools and providing equal opportunity for education, in states like Texas, they were still under federal supervision well into the 1990s. So for
Yes.
people who are saying, oh, we're not our ancestors, or this can't happen to us, yes, it can if
Yeah.
we
It
do nothing.
was.
And this affects everybody. It's not just one fringe group. They really have been equal opportunity in how they're going to go after everybody who is not white, male, and already wealthy, conservative, and connected.
And y'all, I mean, everybody, for people that's listening, and just just as a just a point to make. Y'all know a lot of gas was poured on a project like this during the Trump presidency when he was trying to do a lot of crazy stuff. And you had government workers that was like, no, you can't do that. And he's just like, no, why? So you had a lot of you had a lot of people, on government scale that was stopping a lot of the stuff that he wanted to do. And this seems like an answer to that. Like, hey, we can fire those people. Because I think he probably was surprised when he was like, wait a minute, I can't fire these guys. I can't fire this GS-15. I can't fire this SES. So, I think this is a clapback, so to speak. And again, I think ever since Taraji P. Henson mentioned it, I feel like it reached a critical mass to where people who probably wouldn't be interested in a think tank, and what a think tank publishes are being more interested in it. And just so and for people, think tanks don't walk around calling themselves think tanks, right? Just to stick with the euphemisms, these where they call a thing something and it's something else. They say I'm a policy advisor, right? I do policy advisement. Again, public private partnerships. They'll say stuff like that. So people, you have to, I would encourage everybody to keep reading and find that language and tell your family and your friends, to get politically active. Inform a ballot, like break down a ballot where you live at and pass it out to your friends. So people, because I hate to say it, but people are not going to do the work to figure. Some people may vote down ballot. You know what I mean? Some people may say, look, my decision making a little more nuanced than that. So help them out, because it's one thing to vote down the ballot. It's another thing when you look at your school board and you look at people that may not have a political party, but it's up to us to kind of people who are politically engaged, politically aware, to do things like that and use leverage social media. We doing it right now. YouTube is the S tier social media platform in the world. So we're on there. But for people that's on Facebook, people that's on Instagram, Twitter, all of that, take what you can from this and spread it, because I'm telling you, it may just be that one retweet. It may just be that one Instagram story, you know what I mean, that makes somebody go and register to vote. So again, it's more about the response to this.
Yeah, speaking of taking the reins of government, there's a part on page 27 where it says the White House Counsel, speaking of people who checked the president, who checked Trump while he was in office, the White House Counsel cannot serve as a finishing school to credentials the next set of white shoe law firm attorneys or federal judges in waiting to cabin their opinions for fear their elite credentials would be tarnished through a policy disagreement. You see, rather, it should function more as an activist, an ethical plaintiff for the president, who its whose chief client is the administration. The president should choose a White House counsel who is well versed in the Constitution, the inner workings of Congress. Effectively just telling you, listen, how can you bend the rule so that the president can get his way? It's not about the people. Again, it's a question of language. And speaking of language, in the entire document, talking about keywords, the word conservative appears 828 times. The word president appears 508 times. Effectively telling you what this document is about, who it is geared for. We've given you a mandate for the American president. And right now, this is what we're working with. This is our blueprint for capturing power. And anybody that gets in the way goes back to that quote I started with. It can be a bloodless revolution if the left allows it. So one has to be conversant, just like Marlon is saying, that you take, it could be 2 lines, it could be 3, it could be 5, it could be 10. But you have to do your utmost best to ensure that this document does not see the light of day in implementation. Because if it does, Nitra said it earlier about what happened in the 1930s in Germany. This is essentially Mein Kampf, but written in English.
But I would say this for people who read this document, that these folk have been savvy enough, though, to sandwich some of their really diabolical ideas and anti-human ideas in language that one could read and say, oh, but this sounds like a great idea. Like, what's wrong with that? It's not all bad, And so I'm going to use an example that I cannot remember who used this example years ago that I heard. But she said, if I make some brownies for you, and if anybody who knows what brownies are, they're chocolate, they're usually dark, and I put just a little bit of human doo-doo in it, just a little, not a lot. Is there a problem with the brownies? You see what I'm saying? So most of us would say, I don't want even a drop of human feces in my brownies. Most of us are not going to say, oh, well, it's 99% food. The feces isn't a big deal. And that is, I think, what they've done here, is that there are some, to a reasonable mind, some ideas they have in here that you'll say, yeah, of course we should cut back on inefficiencies. Of course we should promote families. But then you got to go deeper, and what do they mean by that? So, for instance, where they say here, this data collection, page 455. The CDC's abortion, surveillance, and maternity mortality reporting systems are woefully inadequate.
Yes.
When you add that to places like Texas that have passed laws where you can throw women in prison, then you see how dangerous this is. Why are you collecting this data? Is it to save lives, or is it to go after people? There's so many other places. Let me look at this part. Page 462. The title is actually Woke Policies. Can you imagine?
Woke policies.
Under Francis Collins, NIH became so focused on the Me Too movement. Really? What was the Me Too movement about?
Sexual harassment, sexual assault. Yeah.
Exactly. How dare you?
How can you have too much focus on that? How can too much focus be a thing?
What is too much focus?
It said became so focused on the Me Too movement that it refused to sponsor scientific conferences unless there were a certain number of women panelists, which violates federal civil rights law against sex discrimination. Wait a second. But assaulting people and assaulting women, that doesn't violate. Like, what are you talking about?
Double speak.
Double speak.
Double
Mhm.
speak.
So it says this quota practice should be ended. Never mind that you had a quota where 100% of your presenters were white men. Okay. But now this quota practice should be ended. And the NIH Office of Equity, Diversity, and Inclusion, which pushes such unlawful actions, should be abolished because there's no good that does it all. NIH has been at the forefront in pushing junk gender science. Instead, it should fund studies into the short-term and long-term negative effects of cross-sex interventions, including affirmation, puberty blockers, cross-sex hormones, and surgeries, and the likelihood of desistance if young people are giving counseling. It goes into that, and then it talks about there's been an uptick in the number of young people who are requesting surgery to kind of change their bodies, particularly young girls is what they say. Why would they have a particular concern with young girls? Well, because if you guys stop whatever causes you to reproduce, we can no longer control you. And so it goes on and on and on. Remove restrictions on physician-owned hospitals, but then they don't have a certain amount of oversight. And then in certain states, because we're giving the power back to the states, in Texas, if you are going to sue for medical malpractice, you better have some deep pockets, or you better have irrefutable proof.
It's so
Otherwise,
hard.
you are just going to waste your money. And it goes on and on and on and on. And they talk about we've got to help corporations make more money. We've got to take away the regulations, and humanity simply does not matter.
And I want to add to the thing with abortion. They want to take away abortion, period. But in the document, it is they try and layer it in a way that makes you think that they are somehow empathetic to, you know, miscarriages or ectopic pregnancies or whatever. But they try, so in their language they saying those type of abortions are not abortions. Those type of abortions have to be completely separate from someone who just wants to go and get an abortion. The thing with that is doesn't matter how you try and the reason for the procedure is the same. This is what it is. They want to get rid of the pill abortion. Now, the pill, if you have an ectopic pregnancy or if you have a miscarriage, the pill, it helps the process. But that pill does not just help with the process of getting removing from
terminating the pregnancy. Yeah.
It also helps with regulating cycles. So you have people who don't have normal cycles and they have to go and take this same medication to regulate their cycles. Also, this is not just for adults. You have this is kids. Some kids, and I read a study where it was linked to the foods where, you know, young girls are getting their cycles much, much earlier than it was before. So them getting those cycles that young, the cycles are not regular. So they need a type of medication that uses the same type of chemical structure as the abortion pill to help regulate their cycles. They want to get rid of that. So this, like, you have to see, it's not just because they go into it further. It's not just abortion. They're actually going after women's health. This is just, so women's health is totally separate from just overall general health. You need specialized people to actually treat women for certain things because, of course, we don't have the same things that a male has. But if you're a male writing this, you don't give a shit. You don't have any, you don't have a uterus. You don't have
What?
tubes, or you don't have any of that. So you don't care that this has to be specialized for women. They don't want that. So now you don't have those doctors that specialize in the care of women. You no longer have those. Then you have where there's no oversight on the doctors that they want it to be, because this is not like, oh, this is OBGYN stuff. No, the doctors that they want it to be, there's no oversight on them. So imagine who gets the worst part of it. Also with this because they go into the gender affirming care and all of this, they go into this a lot. They actually sort of they try to mesh gender affirming care with child pornography. They put those together. It's like they're one and the same, but while telling you that you need to separate something else, but then they join something like gender affirming care and child pornography. So they go after that, saying like, oh no, this is gonna help get rid of child pornography by dealing with the genitals of people. Now, I want to go to something that's recently I want to connect it to something that's recently in the news. They had this thing where they were talking about this female boxer. This is a woman. She's a woman boxer. And there's been nothing but hatred and just homophobia. I don't even know what it is when it's, when it's not about gayness, when it's about gender. I don't know if that's homophobia, but whatever it is, it's hatred towards a group of people that they think is, not normal. But the one thing that we have to make note of, women of color is always the ones who are accused of being more manly or appearing manly, anything like that. And think about this in education, because
it's a slippery slope. Yes, a slippery slope.
That goes back to education. They look at, so imagine these young girls, they're gonna be directed at young Black girls. And because us inherently, they look at Black women as if we are, somehow, less feminine. So this woman is just being treated like this just because of appearance only. So imagine this being in your public schools. They're saying no gender affirming care. But how is it that they're going to determine if this child is getting gender affirming care or not? Well, we're gonna check the kid. Now, who's gonna sign up for that job? Who's signing up for the job to check children's genitals? If you ask me, I think it's the predators that's gonna sign up for the jobs. So you're not keeping your kids safe from, this ideology of, transgender. You're actually putting your kids in more danger, because now they have free reins to do whatever they want within your schools. Remember how Aya just said how they're going to separate how private schools are, how they oversee private school versus public school.
They won't be subject. Yeah, they won't be subject to
the same
most
thing.
of any of this stuff.
Exactly. So meaning that's a class issue. So who are they going to? Now who's going to be looking after these kids if whoever this person is that signs up for the job that say, I want to make sure that girls are girls and boys are boys, who's going to have the oversight over that person? And you sending your kid to school saying, I don't want my kid to go to school with someone who doesn't know what their gender is, but yet you have someone in the school that's checking the genital of normal, regular kids in your language. That's
and like you said, Black girls will be overrepresented And
Yes.
when it comes to the apprehension or the suspected prosecution of these policies, they're going to be like, I don't know about that one right there. It's not, it's not going to happen to little,
It's not
Jenny,
gonna
little
happen to
Jane.
black girls.
Yeah.
But remember, not just black girls, probably Hispanics, people of color is the ones who's gonna get the worst part of it. Why? Because they're going off of European standards of beauty. So for us, now some of us, we may look at them and be like, you don't look, womanly to me. But for them, the lens that they have is European standards. So if you have these features of black women or women of color, to them, that's more manly. So now you are now being subject to having your genitals checked and your medical care, your medical treatment is now going to be tracked by whoever, because this is not just for kids. I think the most abhorrent part of it is that they want to do this to kids, but they also want to track women, grown women. They want to be able to make sure that you are not getting abortions and you're not getting gender affirming care, which to me is just wow. I have other thoughts about that. They didn't say anything about plastic surgery. Let me just say that. They said no gender affirming care, yet you can get your ass and titties done. To me, there's something wrong with that. Is that not gender affirming? If I'm getting bigger breasts,
It
that
is.
is
It
gender
is.
affirming, right? That's what it is. But they don't want that. They only want to go after the others that they call them, the quote unquote others. This is the people that we're dealing with, which tells me that the goalpost is going to move every time. And when it's not for them, they're going to move it. They're going to change it. When it's not working out for them, that's when they're going to come in and say, oh, you know what? Better yet, you know what? If you have, if your second toe is bigger than your big toe, we going after you. That's how we're going to do it. It's going to change every time. So you can't put your trust into people like this who would put together this document, but people with these type of thought processes, because it doesn't stop here. It just this is where it starts, and then it just gets worse and worse and worse. And I think that's what people need to go to the extreme in your mind. When you hear the simplest thing, go to the extreme. What's the worst that they could do with this law? That's what I do in everything. When I see these, draconian type laws, I want to see the worst part. What's the worst thing that they could do with this? And to me, it's putting a predator in the school, checking the genitals of kids, because they saying that being transgender is somehow a disease or something.
I never even thought. I ain't even look at it from that angle. But that's crazy. That is crazy because that is what's encased in there. It is though.
It's in there.
Well,
Go to the extreme.
Let's continue with just again. We're not going to get through 922 pages
Obviously
of
not.
this
No.
document. But one of the things that America used to pride itself on was this concept of separation of church and state.
Oh my
All
goodness!
these documents of thought from Thomas Jefferson to James Madison to George
White
Washington.
Jesus then entered the chat.
All the reasons that there should be a wall between the state and the church. On page 481, talking about the Department of Health and Human Services, and there's actually so much that I could go through with this because it gets into teen pregnancy prevention and taking money for child welfare and using that to teach healthy relationships, which again, on its face sounds like great, except you're not providing additional funds for this new thing that you want to do. You're going to extract funds from people that already need it for real, like to put food on their table and all of that. They also want where if, right now in a lot of states, and I think it's federally mandated, if you get, if you're getting paid, if you get any check from the government, TANF, those kind of things, there is a work requirement that is, that is added to it, right? some states will waive that work requirement for single parents who have children under the age of 6. But what they are now saying is that even if you get food stamps, you should also have a work requirement tied to that. We need to go back and think about who are the people that get food stamps. It's really not just families with young children. You also have elders.
Delays, yeah.
You also have people on disability, all of that kind of stuff. And so you're now going to impose this additional barrier
Burden.
for them just to get food stamps. Food stamps is so regulated. You can't even get healthy food with food stamps in a lot of places. They want you to get the junk food. And I don't know if some of you remember this. Trump for a second floated the idea of you can no longer just go to the grocery stores and get your food with your food stamps. They were going to have contractors that will send out what they determine should come to you, which would be all canned food, and processed foods directly to you, which, was going to be contractors that were his friends. But anyway, so something to pay attention to. But in addition to that, on page 481, this is what they say when we talk about separation of church and state. They said, protect faith-based grant recipients from religious liberty violations and maintain a biblically based, social science reinforced definition of marriage and family. If we're talking about separation of church and state, and they're all different kinds of religions, what makes your definition the one that has to be imposed on everybody? Even as you are saying, protect faith-based, which is broad, grant recipients from religious liberty violations. But you are really going to say, but if you don't define your religion in this way, you don't fit in, and then I guess you lose your violation. So there's so much, like I said earlier, in terms of good stuff that is in here. They're talking about promoting father involvement, and I hear a lot of Black men jumping on this bandwagon. Welfare started, and the Black woman kicked the Black man out of the home because she took the check over the Black man, and so on and so forth. And I'm not going to today argue whether there are Black women who have said, yeah, I want to check over a man. I know very few, if any, that made that determination. But we do know that we would like to see more of our Black men actively involved in their children's lives, whether you live in the home or not. And so on the one hand, you can look at this and say, oh, wow, they want to encourage parents, especially fathers, to engage with their children. But then it's all the other pieces that they put in there and how they're tracking, and also how they're defining what women are allowed and are not allowed to do. And so, and if you go through this document, Adesoji, I don't know if you ran this through your system, how many times they mention Trump. Although they say this is not a document tied to any particular president besides a conservative president, it's amazing how many times
312 times.
312. Thank you. Restore Trump. Restore Trump's mandate. Restore what Trump said. Restore what Trump did. Yes. So it's a very thinly veiled way of really saying who they want in power, and again, what's going to happen when they get that power. Here's another thing that they're saying: eliminate men's preventative services from the women's preventative services mandates. In December 2021, this is page 485, HRSA updated its women's preventative services guidelines to include male condoms. And now they don't want that included. It's like, what? So we can't get any contraceptive pills, but also we can't use condoms for preventative health care either, to protect ourselves. With training medical doctors, communicate to medical schools that any abortion related training must be on an opt-in rather than an opt-out basis. Now, as someone who experienced 4 miscarriages at different stages, what is the medical difference between a spontaneous abortion, which is what a miscarriage is, and an induced abortion? So if you're going to train medical people, but then I come to a doctor and the doctor, or to a medical facility, and the doctor says, oh, I opted out of this training. Do I just bleed out on the hospital floor?
Mhm.
Because instead of you learning everything about how to protect life, not just the babies, but also the mothers, they have said opt out. Let's go on. Hold on. Oh my God. Like I have so much underlined in here. I can't cover it all. The life agenda, page 489. The Office of the Secretary should eliminate the HHS Reproductive Healthcare Access Task Force and install a pro-life task force to ensure that all
Task
the
force.
Pro-life. Yeah, tax
yeah,
force.
but it's like pro whose life though? Whose life are you pro? Because you're not my pro my life.
Yeah.
Because when a woman here in Texas said, I've got a stillborn baby in me, can you guys check this out? It's causing
Nope.
me all of the, and they were like, nope, let
Nope.
nature do its part. Does my life count?
Nope.
Yeah.
Okay, so it
But,
says install a pro-life task force to ensure that all of the department's divisions seek to use their authority to promote the life and health of women and their unborn children. Now, these same people, if you talk to them about the death penalty,
They're for it.
won't care. These same people, if you talk to them about paying families living wages so they can take care of their children, no. These same people are the ones who are saying reverse the Affordable Care Act. These are the same people who are saying, no, we should not cover pre-existing conditions. These are the same people who are saying we're not going to expand Medicare. How are you pro-life? Please tell me.
Double speak.
double speak.
Double speak. Double speak.
Okay, listen to this one, page 492. Rescinds legal analysis that authorized HHS to impose a moratorium on rental evictions during COVID. I am an attorney. I am often in small claims courts. Do you know how many Americans went under? Because depending on what field you worked in, and if you were an hourly employee, if your business closed down, if your business suddenly wasn't getting orders, you weren't making any money, but you still had bills coming in. And so many people were so horribly impacted by this pandemic. And the wealthy were able to, like the Tom Brady's and so many members of Congress were able to apply for and get all that COVID money. Do you all remember that?
Yeah,
Buy
yeah.
purchase
And it got
stocks
and it got written off
yeah.
as well.
Yep.
And that got written up, but we can't forgive school debt. But now you are saying don't put a moratorium on rental evictions. You're not saying that you're not saying you're wiping their debt clean. You're saying don't just throw them out on the streets yet. Give them a chance to get their feet back under them. And these people in a 922 page document, it was important to them to say, nah, let's go back to increasing the percentage of homeless people. But we're pro-family.
Right.
And yet in the
Then
same
they have on page 493, Office for Civil Rights, conscience enforcement. Existing statutes that protect rights of conscience, such as the Church, Code Snow, and Weldon amendments, do not explicitly provide a private right of action that would allow victims to seek legal redress in courts. So we are against reparations, except when it applies to, I want to discriminate against homosexual. I want to discriminate against a woman. I want to discriminate against a Black person, whatever. Then if you hold them accountable for that, we want legal redress and we want reparations for them. They also want reparations for anybody who, because of the vaccine mandates, maybe lost their jobs. They want them to get paid. But for Black people who can demonstrate 250 plus years of free labor, we have no reparation. That is critical race theory. And why would you bring that up? And then Then it goes on, page 510. Anyone bought a house and needed to get what's it called? The insurance, the additional insurance you get.
Flood insurance or
No. This
oh,
is to
the
help
mortgage
your
insurance, like for the
yeah,
points.
PMI or something like that.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
Yeah.
This is what they
Yeah.
say. FHA leadership should increase the mortgage insurance premium for all products above 20-year terms and maintain mortgage insurance premium for all products below 20-year terms and all refinances. So again, who are you penalizing? Eliminate the new housing supply
Yeah.
fund. Repeal the affirmatively
Doing
furthering
workers.
fair housing regulations.
Everyday working Americans. That's who you shitting on, because I mean, so and basically that last part, you get an FHA loan, it's mandatory that you get a certain type of insurance, right?
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? This mortgage insurance premium, and they're saying raise that rate, you know, and it's pretty pricey as it is, like compared to like regular home insurance, you know. So yeah, that's just more mess.
One other
Now,
thing I want to mention.
here's the thing for those of you who are married to non-citizens, and I see a lot of our military folk. You guys go overseas, you come back with a spouse from another country. This is what they said. The Office of the Secretary should recommence proposed regulation put forward under the Trump administration that would prohibit non-citizens, including all mixed status families. So if I'm a citizen and I married someone who's not a citizen, they're going through the green card process or whatever the case may be, prohibit them from living in all federally assisted housing. Why such hatred?
Wow.
Can't live on post now. Now you can't live on post.
One other thing I want to mention too is they're messing with, you know, the families, and there's another part of this that they're messing with, and that's your money. Okay, so regular people, when you go to work every day, they're talking about extending the time frame for how you can calculate overtime. They're talking about allowing it to be instead of it being with the Department of Labor, it would be actually something that's decided by the employer. They're saying to extend, so instead of you clocking your overtime hours weekly, they're saying put it over a 4-week period instead of 1 week, which is wild to me because what if your employer puts you off the next week? Let's say you don't work the next week. Well, that's not considered overtime, even though in that first week of the 4-week period, you worked maybe 60 hours. Well, after that 4-week period is up, when they come back to calculate it, if you haven't reached that number of hours that they set, then you don't get overtime. So they messing with your money. Like, it's not just them going after, you know, these cultural things. They're messing with money.
And why would they need to put that in place? What is the impetus? What is the end goal for putting such a policy in place? To screw with us. Yeah. For the rich to get richer, to keep exploiting people. Yes.
And for us, and to work us to death. I think it's to just work us to death. There's gonna be a person who is going to try and make sure they reach those overtime hours. And they're going to be working themselves to death over a 4-week period instead of getting their hours in for the week. They're going to be sitting there calculating how they're going to have to work over 4 weeks instead of 1 week. To me, that's also saying that you don't have to pay me that week either. You can wait 4 weeks until you pay me my overtime. Well, I'm working overtime right now. It's bad enough if you get paid, you know, every 2 weeks. You got to wait 2 weeks till you get that overtime. Well, they saying, well, no, because it's going to be separate. We're going to look at it at a 4-week period, which you then may get a separate check. And who knows, they might tax you differently on your overtime than what they do with the regular time. So this is not for the working class. This is not for the everyday working class people.
Yeah, now they know it's anti-labor. Yeah, it's anti-labor.
The rich people won't have those problems. Rich people not counting overtime. They not looking at their check to see if they do it 40 or 50 hours this week. They are going after the lower class, specifically the poor and the working class. So it's not just women and abortion. Men, if you work overtime, they taking your overtime. Okay, that's what they want to do. It's here in the document.
They're gonna have overtime moratoriums and stuff.
Okay, now I want you guys to consider this, right? These are the same people who are making the argument for school vouchers and how it's going to be so helpful. Okay, now please pay attention to this part. It's going to be a little long, but let me read it. Page 511. Obviously, using government vouchers, this is about housing, using government vouchers or other such programs to expand housing choice options is not without its downsides. They're not talking about downsides for school vouchers, but hold on. The turn towards mobility vouchers constitutes an abandonment of America's public housing stock. How does the turn towards school vouchers not constitute an abandonment of public schools? Okay, let me continue. I'm not making this up. It's on page 511 if you want to go check. Okay. And efforts to increase competition in the public housing market must not come at the expense of local autonomy and the ability of cities, towns, neighborhoods, and communities to choose for themselves the sort of housing they want to allow. Freedom of association and self-government at the most local level possible must remain primary considerations in any conservative effort to increase competition in the public housing market. But don't give them vouchers because that's going to mess stuff up. But then they continue. In the same manner, Congress should prioritize any and all legislative support for the single family home. Remember how they define single family. So if I am taking care of my parents and my parents are living with me and my children are also living with me, that is not a single family according to their definition. Okay. So home ownership forms the backbone of the American dream. Of course, we can all embrace that. The purchase of a home is the largest investment most Americans will make in their lifetimes, and ownership remains the most accessible way to build generational wealth for millions of Americans. But then which Americans are we talking about? Because listen to this sentence. For these reasons, American homeowners and citizens know best what is in the interest of their neighborhoods and communities. Localities, rather than the federal government, must have the final say in zoning laws and regulations. And the conservative administration should oppose any efforts to weaken single family zoning. What are they saying? We want to keep you, quote unquote, undesirables away. We, the American citizens, put in quotes, white folk of a certain caliber, will determine whether you are worthy to live in our neighborhoods or not, and so on and so forth. So again, for people who are saying, should I pay attention to this? Does it matter? Does my vote matter? Listen, if our votes didn't matter, they wouldn't be working so hard to ensure that we don't vote.
True.
It's true.
And this is what I have to say to our generation. We were born, most of us, and handed a certain set of rights that we didn't fight for.
Yeah.
We better not. Many of us are watching the Olympics. You don't want to be the one on that relay race who doesn't hand the baton to the next runner because you done dropped it or you stopped to go and sniff something. I don't know what. You want to be running your race hard and you want to be ready to hand over that baton. Let our generation, out of willful ignorance, not be the one that leaves our children with less rights and opportunities than were handed to us.
Facts.
I agree. 100%.
Yeah.
That's we can't and we take for granted what we have until it's gone, and the it has to be a constant. We have to be constantly putting in our kids' head that freedom you're gonna continuously fight for it. So it may be easy right now. You may feel like it's cool and it's chill, but Project 2025 is not going nowhere. So I have to teach my nieces and nephews that's under me that don't see how a Project 2025 can affect them. I have to teach them that you better make sure with all your being that a Project 2025 don't sneak up on you. That means you got to always stay with your head on the swivel, because they coming for it. These
Yep.
people want ultimate control over everyone else. They want all the power, and they want the control over others, and they're not gonna stop at it. It's continuous. They're gonna continue asking, or not asking, but continue taking
Mhm.
from us. That's what they're set out to do, and that's what this Project 2025 is about. It's just taking. I don't see anything about them giving us nothing. They this whole document is just only about taking away things. It's not giving us anything.
And
So
they're gonna present it in nice language. This is the
mhm,
black codes. This is the nadir. This is the time after Reconstruction.
yeah.
This is the red summer. Like this is what this is. Like this is what this is. It's just they remixed it every decade. They come with something new. This is the latest. It's like Nature said. It's like Aya said. It's gonna come back around,
Mhm.
and this is how this is one way to deal with it. It's like what Aya said about running the race. We all have to figure out which way we want to run the race, and we can't be too hard on people who we don't agree with the way that they're running. Find somebody who run the race that they're running the relay that you want to be a part of, and get involved.
Mhm.
And get involved. Spend more energy coalition building, bridge building, versus finger waving, and being critical. Because as you can see, they're organized. They're organized. They having their huddles. So
Mhm.
we got to have our huddles, and we have to commission documents like this. Maybe we don't commission a 900-page document, but maybe we commission a 9-page document. Maybe we can set aside some money, you know, so I can take a month off, you know, and produce something that we can distribute out on social media, because
Mhm.
that's the new venue, right? That's the new venue for right now. You could do more damage. You could do more damage, with a tweet, a lot of times than you can, laying down on somebody's highway, in protest. So we just we gotta make sure we use all the tools that we have at our disposal. But this is what this is. This all the stuff you read about in history, all these atrocities that you read about all across, the Maafa, you know what I mean? All across, no matter where we were under siege at, no matter what hemisphere, what continent, this is another iteration of it. This is
Mhm.
another iteration of it. People are gonna look back on this document and ask, what did you do? What did you do? How did you respond to this? So, so please, and it's the Heritage Foundation. It's the Heritage Foundation right now. It could be Cato in 4 years. It could be
Yeah.
American Enterprise Institute, in 8 years. So, you have to, you just keep your eyes open. You know.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank
It's
you
up
very
to
much.
us. It's up
Thank you.
it's up to us.
Adesoji, I know that we are way over time. I think that we would really be remiss if we do not say something about Chapter 18.
Go on.
Reverse the DEI revolution in labor policy.
I
Eliminate
can't
racial
believe.
classifications and critical race theory trainings. Issue an executive order banning, and Congress should pass a law prohibiting the federal government from using taxpayer dollars to fund all critical race theory training. They don't tell you what critical race theory is. They can't define it.
Exactly.
right?
Exactly.
So this is anything that they want it to be. This will be a
Yep.
catch-all. It goes on. Eliminate EEO1 data collection. The Equal Employment Opportunity Commission collects data on employment statistics based on race, ethnicity, which data can then be used to support a change of discrimination under a disparate impact theory. This could lead to racial quotas to remedy alleged race discrimination. So we don't want to know if there's a problem or not. Just
Hmm.
eliminate collecting all the data. See no
Right.
evil, hear no
No, no
evil. No,
evil.
there's no evil. So when
Yeah.
you come and say, "Oh, there's a problem here," well, prove it. Well, we can't
Yes,
prove it because you
you
don't collect
can't.
data. Oh, well, then you have no case. Okay, it goes on. The next administration should work with Congress to amend Title VII to prohibit the Equal Employment Opportunity Commission from collecting EO data and any other racial classification in employment for both private and public workplaces. Why is this in a country that was built on racism? Why is this so important to them? So for those of you who are saying we're not going with the Democrats because unless they come for our reparations, let me tell you, if we're not collecting any data, then nobody's getting reparations. Like what data are they gonna
You're
forget
not.
it? So like use your brain. And I'm not trying to put anybody down, but I'm just saying this is a time for us to really think critically about this stuff. If these people are saying your race doesn't count, we don't want to know anything, what makes you think that voting them into power or sitting out, which is a vote in and of itself, is going to help you get what you say you want? Okay, let's continue. Eliminate disparate impact as a valid theory of discrimination for race and other bases under Title VII and other laws. They are on this race thing. Sign an executive order explicitly forbidding OFCCP from using disparate impact in its analysis. We are not going to look at, oh, wait a second, maybe the reason why the majority of Supreme Court justices are male and not female is because you guys only hire
Mhm.
male
Male
law
lawyer,
clerks, so on and
lawyers.
so
Yeah.
forth. No, we're not going to look at all of that. It goes on. Sex discrimination. The Biden administration, LGBT advocates, and some federal courts have attempted to expand the scope and definition of sex discrimination. Um, Based on the Bostock v. Clayton County, Bostock held that an employer who fires someone simply for being homosexual or transgender violates the Title VII's prohibition against sex discrimination. The court explicitly limited its holding to the hiring firing context in Title VII and did not purport to address other Title VII issues. So they want to make sure, let's go back to discriminating against anyone who is not like us. Um, the new administration should restrict Bostock's application of sex discrimination protections to sexual orientation and transgender status in the context of hiring and firing. The president should direct agencies to withdraw unlawful notices and guidances purporting to apply Bostock's reasoning broadly outside of hiring and firing. Rescind regulations prohibiting discrimination on the basis of sexual orientation, gender identity, transgender status, and sex characteristics. So, yeah, if you or anyone you love or know, or if you just care about humanity, is in any
Mhm.
way considered to be LGBTQIA, they're coming for you. And then it goes on. Provide robust protections for religious employers. What they really mean is Christian employers.
Christian
Because
employees.
Yes.
if Muslim employers started to put up certain things, or if I put up, one of my altars, it would be to Yamaya or whatever,
No,
like,
no.
oh, witchcraft and so on and so forth. Issue an executive order protecting religious employers and employees. Um, Listen, we don't have enough time. Um, we don't oh, this is going back to this work thing that Nitra was talking about, page 589. Congress should clarify that overtime for telework applies only if the employee exceeds 10 hours of work in a specific day.
Oh, they mad about that telework. They mad about that telework. No, no more telework. It's this. It's wild. They want you in the office so that they can berate you and uh, have that workplace politics
Mm-hmm.
BS. And who always get the brunt of it? It's always black people or black women, but it's always black people that we don't like that stuff is crazy to us. That whole little workplace politics stuff, like that's crazy to me. Like having to deal with all of the different microaggressions. Telework gets rid of that. I don't have to deal with this no more. I don't have to deal with you trying to micromanage me. But for them, no more telework. We're putting you back in the office for no reason, by the way, because we know that studies show that people were more productive when they worked from home than when they worked in the office. But they don't care about that. They just want you to be in the office so that they can basically lord over you and look at you and then have you subjected to their BS. Because it goes into some more. The EEOC, that's wild. The way they want to get rid of EEOC, that protects you at work from different racist attacks, discrimination. You go to EEOC to help fight on your behalf if something like that is happening. That's like the guy that won that huge lawsuit through Tesla against Tesla. He had to go through EEOC in order for him to be able to even initiate that that lawsuit. So he got a pretty nice, generous settlement. It's horrible that he had to go through it for what, 17 years or something. It was like 17 or 13 years, something like that. But he had to go through EEOC. That he didn't have to go and hire a lawyer and pay a lawyer to fight to prove that his job was racist and discriminatory. He had an arm of the government that's supposed to protect us from those type of mistreatments. So he had EEOC that was able to go and fight on his behalf so that he could sue Tesla and get the $120 million or so from the jury. And they don't want EEOC. They want to get rid of them. No more.
Elon Musk.
Musky ass. But man, how about the H-2A visas? Did y'all see that putting American workers first on page 611?
Yeah. Close the border.
Yeah, a labor agenda focused on the strength of American families must put American workers first. As the family necessarily puts the interests of its members first, so too the United States must put the interests of American workers first. It's that nationalist, that protectionism, nationalism shit, right? Immigration, the H-2A visa meant to allow this is so ridiculous, meant to allow temporary agricultural workers into the United States also suffers from frequent employer abuse. So there goes the sleight of hand, right? We're trying to help the workers because the employers are abusing these folks, right?
Why I switch up though?
Right, the low cost of H-2A workers undercuts America. Now this is the ridiculous shit right here. Undercuts American workers in agricultural employment.
As if we're doing that.
I used to pass these strawberry fields when I lived in Tampa, right? Hot sun, no shade trees, no nothing. These people, I'm thinking Central South America, out there picking these strawberries, and I never saw anybody like, yo, that should be me. I never saw an American person like that should be me. I should be out there picking those strawberries in the sun. Like nobody's fighting over unless I'm wrong. If somebody in the chat knows somebody that's supposed to be picking that lost their strawberry picking job, let me know. And then so that's agricultural workers. Then it goes down to H-2B workers, right? So for non-agricultural seasonal workers suffer from many of the same harms and abuses, right? albeit lesser scope because of its cap and distribution across many sectors. I wonder what some of those sectors are. Right.
Well, it could include
Hotel workers,
models from
nurses. It's so many.
No, you're talking about real work. I'm talking about how his wife came in.
Oh, yeah.
All right.
That's true. Wow, you're right.
Einstein, whatever visa. Yes, sir.
And that's probably why for the first time that I saw in this document, they presented an alternative view for the H-2B visa, right? Because it was like, wait, daddy might get mad at us because this how his wife came in. So let's clean this up.
Look at how much Melania has added to the American.
What?
Yeah. What do you care?
Where would we be as a country if she didn't come and become our first lady?
Exactly.
True.
So this not.
I laugh as we end here. Page 599. This is hilarious, but not. They are talking about unions and why having unions is a problem, right? So they said federal labor law offers no alternatives to labor unions whose politicking and adversarial approach appeals to few. We don't need any data to prove this. We're just going to say it.
Appeals to few.
Whereas, appeals to few. Whereas most workers report that they prefer a more cooperative model run jointly with management. Tell me where that's worked. That focuses solely on workplace issues. So here's their recommendation. The next administration should make new options available to workers and push Congress to pass labor reforms that create non-union employee involvement organizations.
What? What?
This thing was that whole part there.
Yeah, this is a crazy paragraph. This is a crazy paragraph.
It was so convoluted because it tries to say that it's for the workers, and then it says
labor unions whose politicking and adversarial approach appeals to few. Wait a minute. We're talking about the job market. Markets are adversarial by nature. One side is trying to win. One side is trying to advocate for itself.
And then, but they put it as they're giving a voice to the workers. That's how it's.
So what is that group called? The Employee Involvement Organization. How is that different from a labor union? You just put this in place so you can weaken labor unions and create more groups that fight each other internally while the boss stays there and is untouched. Because now the Employee Involvement Organization is fighting the labor union, and and Bezos and Elon Musk are counting their money.
It's instead of it being stronger together to actually get to the people at the top, they want it, split all up into different factions, so that they really don't even they don't put a dent in the American corporation that these workers is fighting for. Because first of all, you're putting in here about let's get rid of. Now, this is your plan for the future of America. You're putting in here to get rid of unions, yet you're not addressing why unions exist. So in your new world, stop these corporations from abusing the employees. And then there wouldn't be a need for the unions. But you're saying, no, we're going to keep our corporations in there. They're going to do whatever it is that they want to do. And we're going to get rid of the system now that's protecting the workers. And we're just going to put in a new system that is supposedly geared toward the workers, yet you still want the workers to have to fight for whatever it is that they want. Like, just take it away. Put something in place where the corporations won't abuse the employees and they give them their fair share of wages, of benefits, of workplace safety, and whatever else it is that the unions don't have to fight for. The unions are fighting for basic needs.
But that's
why they exist.
That's anti-American to have.
Yeah, and people you got to understand something. Like I grew up in Florida. That's a right. That has been a right to work state long as I can remember. Right. It's hard to find big labor in Florida. Right. I don't know how Texas is. But my mom, she moved to Michigan when I was 16, and I went up there to visit her, and I got a job immediately, a well-paying job, and I got to see like unions operate up close, and it was eye-opening. And I'll tell anybody, because we assume, we can be us on this call can assume that everybody knows, about organized labor. But for the people that's watching this that come from right to work states and don't have a lot of labor engagement, just think about it this way. Have you ever worked at a big company or just worked at a company where the management was not organized? If the management is not organized, the ownership is not. If the management is organized and the ownership is organized, and by that I mean you get your check with regularity, right? They give you time to come in. If they're organized, why shouldn't labor be organized? Why should you have to fend for yourself, right? Management don't exist in silos, right? They report up higher. They're incredibly organized. They're incredibly organized. Don't you deserve the same thing? Don't you deserve to be organized? So I'll just say that.
Wow. Any last words, guys? Project 2025.
So I'll just say, in closing, we have to take this seriously, and like they told us before, how they pointed out the number of times that the president was used, the number of times that they mentioned the executive branch. This plan here is heavily focused on elected officials. So the only way we can counter that is by us actually voting. We cannot get away from voting. It doesn't matter what system you have, you still going to have some form of government. This here is the best way we can counter this is with the vote, because these people are voted in, but once their plan is in place, it's no longer in your hands.
They're done with the people to the next election.
That's it. They done with them. So your best tool, if you want to fight this, is to go and vote and take somebody with you. If you vote for the other side, and we're in political parties, let's just get over it. Okay. That's just what it is right now. We can fight for other type of party systems, another time, or simultaneously. Yeah. But right now we have two sides. We have Democrats and we have Republicans. This is a plan for Republicans, quote unquote conservatives, because that's what they put in here, MAGA. And you have the other side. You have to go and get your people out to vote. Not for the MAGA. Yeah, I'm telling you, don't vote for them. You got to vote for the other side so that you can actually have a voice to continue fighting for the little freedoms that we do have, because we know the other side. We're still fighting the other side too. We're not just parlaying over here on the Democratic Party side. We still have to fight for the rights that we have, and it has to continue. So take your young people with you, get them out to vote. They're voting against Project 2025 by voting for a Democrat. Put a Democrat in there and then fight the Democrat like hell for what you want in your neighborhood, in your city, in your town. Don't sit down and let them decide what they're going to do with you. You fight them for what you want. But the first thing we got to do is get Project 2025 out the paint. We got to get them out. That's what we got to do. And
Out
that's
the paint. That Houston came out.
it did. But y'all know what I'm saying. We got to get them out the paint. So that's all I have.
Thank you, Nitra. Thank you. Sister Aya?
I don't know where to end. Sister Nitra, I appreciate everything that you had to say. Yeah, this is not about Democratic or Republican in the sense of you have to choose a party affiliation. I think it's about looking at who right now will do you the least harm, so that you can have enough space to plan and organize and figure out how you're really going to fight for your liberation. And right now, I have to say that it is the Democratic Party, who has all kinds of flaws and issues as well. And as Nitra said, then you put the pressure on them to deliver. If there's anyone who is saying, I can sit this out, this does not concern me, you have not paid attention. We couldn't get through everything in here, but these guys are even coming for unemployment compensation. They are even saying, oh, well, let's leave it up to the states. And if they have an alternative to unemployment compensation, these people are diabolical in how they are going after everything that actually helps to allow people to live a life of any dignity, where you are not completely destitute. From birth to your schooling, to your health care, to your job, to where you live, to after you've worked hard, where you put your money. They're coming after everything, and it is not a joke. And so my last words would be, each one teach one. This is going to be on YouTube. Share, share, share. Get other people, maybe clip little snippets. For those who don't have a long attention span, they can take any 10 minutes of this and learn something new. Please go and check your voter registration. In my little county, the Republicans have lined up 42,000 plus registered voters who are now on the suspended list. And if they do not go and cure their quote unquote their registrations or re-register, they are not going to be able to vote. And the deadline to register is, I believe, October 7th. And so that's the other thing that we all should be doing. Just like we talk to people about, hey, did you see so and so won this gold medal or so and so? You need to be calling people. Don't take anything for granted. Are you registered to vote? Okay, let's go and take care of that. For people who think they're still on paper, and you know what I mean, you were convicted of a crime and you're not sure that you can vote, you can actually go and check that. You can check that with your local electoral office, your elections office. You can contact an attorney that deals with these kind of things, and or go to the Democratic Party and say, I need to know. There are certain entities that will sit down and work with you and make sure, okay, yes, you did have this felony, but you are cleared to register to vote. You are cleared to vote. Do not disqualify yourself because you're afraid of the dog whistles there. And then make a plan for going out to vote and for taking. I'm personally saying, Aya, if you don't get 25 people by yourself individually to the polls, because I just feel very strongly, like Marlon said, when your children and your children's children ask you what you did during this critical time, what are you going to say? And for me, I'm going to be able to say, baby, I stayed up late nights. I put my money, I put my sweat, I used whatever resources I had to educate people, to register people, to get people to the polling booth so that they can vote.
And you
I
also
did my best to fight this.
and you also printed out the manifesto. Brother Marlon?
For the, just to touch on the political that the good sisters was talking about, I'll say this: if you got a little heartburn, right? If you one of those super revolutionaries and the Democrats are too far to the right for you, I'll pose you this quandary. Think about, who would you rather organize against? Right? Who would you rather organize against? Would you rather organize somebody who would outlaw organizing? Right? Or somebody that, you know, maybe begrudgingly would still hear you out. Right? Do what we're doing now. Right? The four of us, we, you know, Nubia, I know it's a lot of talk about the Onyx Society and everything like that. Listen, do what we're doing right now. A Nubian reached out to me, said, "Hey, come, talk about this with me." Okay, I'm there. Guess what? I wanna hear about another discussion, right? On political action, on another discussion on Project 2025, right? It's no, it don't make any sense for 2,000 plus people to get together a couple of times a week, right? And we don't see the things that we're receiving, the information that we're receiving, we don't see it operationalized outside of our Nubia and narrative accounts, right? So we got to start operationalizing this stuff, right? Do what we're doing right now. Get together, talk, right? Gather, break down your ballots, post the registration deadlines on social media, right? Break down your ballot. You can write your opinion on everybody who's running, right? And share that, right? Like Project 2025 is one of many documents that will be coming out, right? So, you know, in this long struggle that we in, right? And you know, just continue to spread the word, continue to get as active as you can, you know, and stay encouraged.
Well, what can I say? I mean, it's been a truly, truly insightful discussion. Every one of you spoke at length and with such passion that it's beyond my wildest imagination as to why people cannot take this and run with it. And I hope they do. I'm just being, I hope they do. And the reason I say that is this. Growing up reading all the books with regards to all the struggles in the past, the likes of Martin Luther King, Kwame Ture, Malcolm X, Fannie Lou Hamer, and what have you. It doesn't behoove us if all of a sudden it stops there. Was it not, what's his name? James Baldwin, who incidentally turned 100 years this year, that just being an American alone is to live in a constant state of rage. But you now got an opportunity. Historically, you'll be voting in a Black woman. You'll be voting in an example of yourself. I mean, if you don't see that in your mother, you see that in your sister. If you don't see that in your sister, you see that in your wife. Go out there and campaign like crazy. I mean, I'm not an American, but I am an American by extension. I'm here sat with Americans.
You got American family. You got American family.
That's what I'm saying. That, I become much more vested. I mean, since Professor Hunter pressed the record button, it's been like a journey. And so you've embraced something that you can no longer just withdraw yourself from, And so when you see things, you not only, you can't sympathize, you empathize because it's an extension of yourself. So now seeing this document, I love to read. So, seeing that document is like, okay, what's this thing about? You keep hearing this, what's this thing about? And you read, it's like, wow, really? I'm sure people know about this stuff. And so when I reached out to Aya, I said, listen, we can do it in-house and talk amongst ourselves. That's when, obviously seeing Sister Nitra doing her stuff, Marlon coming in to office hours. And for those who don't know of what office hours, it's our in-house discussion in Nubia. You know there are people who are passionate about liberation. Liberation is humanity. I mean, they're talking about freedom, but their freedom is in inverted commas. It's to take away something from you. It's not to give you anything. It's the freedom for them to take. I mean, the book, the manifesto itself starts section 1. It says, taking the reins of government. From whom? It's already with you. It's already with you. So what are you taking? So the double speak. So, I mean, not to go off on a rant. Thank you very much, guys, for coming. And it's been an honor and a privilege to have not just yourselves, but also the people who are watching in the chats. Again, share this stuff and, let people derive information from it. There is something in there for someone. And yes, thank you all, and good night.